And it was like to obfuscate. I was definitely not willing to be visible. I wasn't valuing the intuitive realm as much as my business expertise. I brought down my rates. I was trying to do the whole funnel campaign and here's a product over here, and for your listeners, they can't see that I'm holding my arm way far away from me.
Yeah, saying, right. Don't look too closely at me.
Right. I'm not here, right? And we know that does not work, right? Authenticity and engagement and connection are so important. And I knew that. I've been in business long enough, and yet really had to go through a deep process a handful of years ago, asking myself every morning in meditation, how am I hiding?
Wow.
And have that be revealed.
Wow. I just want to pause with that because that just resonates so much with me.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Biz Cush, a life coach and therapist, and your host here on the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. We're talking to women all over the world who found their way back to themselves, to their inner knowing, to their intuition, to their wisest self. We're exploring how to feel alive, authentic, engaged, and fully present in your life. Let's awaken your wise woman. Hi, welcome back to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. I'm your host, Biz Cush, and I'm super excited that you're here today because this is a wonderful conversation. I talked with Kim Woods, who is a business coach and life coach, and really just the connection was super great, and I'm really excited to share it. But before we get started, it's March. How did that happen? Hard to believe that the first day of spring or the vernal equinox is right around the corner. And here in the US, daylight savings time has started, which I know there's a lot of controversy about whether or not we should still be abiding by the whole change your clocks thing. But I must say, I love having more light later in the day to just enjoy the day's sunlight and warmth. So here we are in springtime or soon to be springtime. And I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready for warmer weather. But here in Maryland, it takes a while for spring to fully get here. And sometimes it can feel as if we shift from winter to summer pretty rapidly. So we'll see what spring holds. But either way, I am ready. I am ready to have longer days and warm weather. My pansies are blooming in the backyard already, which is always such a lovely surprise. Within the fall, I plant them and, they look nice then, and then they get covered up with snow and look kind of straggly. And then springtime comes and they start to flower again, which is always such a lovely gift. So I hope that it's becoming spring where you are, if that's your season, and that there are warmer days ahead. So today my guest is Kim Woods, and I will talk more about her and her professional bio, but she's going to talk to us about how bringing her intuitive parts more fully into her life and her business shifted things dramatically for her family, and for her business and the clients that she works with. And Kim was kind enough to send me her oracle cards, and they're called How to Use Your Intuition for a Prosperous Life and Successful Business, Intuition Oracle Cards by Kim Woods, the Intuitive Business Strategist. So I just got these a couple of days ago, although we had talked probably in December, and she was talking about how they were in the process of developing them. But she sent me my own deck of cards, which was really amazing. And so I sat with them and picked a card. My very first card that I picked was Shine. And so the words to ponder are, the card statement is, it's time to shine your gifts. Words to ponder are sparkle, visible, stat. The message is stop hiding. Your brilliance is asking to be a beacon in the world. Shine brightly. And interestingly, towards the end of our conversation, as Kim dives deeper into what intuition is, the 3 pillars, as well as how bringing her intuition more fully into her life allowed her to shine more brightly. And she shares that one of her meditations for a period of time was, how am I hiding? Woo! And that really spoke to me because I know that feeling of wanting to shine brightly and yet holding something so far away from me that it's hard for others to see that I'm trying to shine. So that is something I'm going to be sitting with over the next few weeks and meditating on. How am I hiding? And hopefully showing up in a more visible way. A quick shout out to all the women who signed up for the free coaching session with me. I thoroughly, and I'm still enjoying, because some of the people are still scheduled to talk to me, but I'm so enjoying talking to women across the country, across the world, to shine a light on their gifts, to help them see their gifts and bring them more fully into their lives. So thanks again to all of you who applied, because to me, that means you are ready. You are ready for that next step, that you want that growth. You want to create shifts in sort of everyday behavior patterns. And just your emotional state. So I'm grateful for all of you who applied, and it was an honor to work with those who signed up. All right. Well, time to jump into the conversation with Kim, but first, here's a little introduction. Kim Woods, an intuitive business strategist and forecasting expert, teaches high-performing entrepreneurs to know, like, and trust themselves in their businesses and daily life. She has founded multiple 7-figure brick-and-mortar businesses and is a former business consultant at Oracle. She discovered the power of her intuition when she found out how little she knew, liked, and trust herself when her son was born with significant health issues. She had spent all of her time building a successful career based on someone else's definition of success and had ultimately lost herself. The crisis with her son forced her to find herself again through relying on her knowing to defy the doctor's predictions for her son's mediocre quality of life. Liking herself enough to marry ancient wisdom with Western methods and not accept the doctor's plan to merely work around the issues, and trusting herself to see her strategies through for 8 years until she saw complete transformation. Kim's revolutionary question of do you know, like, and trust yourself is the perfect thread that weaves intuition with success, pairing ancient wisdom of astrology, healing modalities, and sacred methods with modern techniques through practical methods. Kim turns the traditional know, like, trust factor inside out. So instead of customers needing to know, like, and trust you, you need to know, like, and trust yourself. When you do, you create personal, professional, and financial success. With countless spiritual and magic certifications paired with 25 years of high-level business experience, Kim has an incredibly solid depth of field for combining business with intuition, creating powerfully transformative results. Kim is a contributor to Entrepreneur, Wake Up with Marcy, Awabisabi, and also loves the ocean. Currently living near the coast in Boston with her husband and 2 children. Without further ado, here's my conversation with the wise woman, Kim Woods. Hi, Kim, and welcome to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you.
but I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself with the listeners and, what inspires you.
What inspires me? I have to say that I am just cuckoo for intuition. Like, honestly, when people ask me, like, what are you interested in? I try to say gardening and reading, cooking, and those things are true. But honestly, I am just wild about intuition. Every single thing along the intuitive spectrum, whether it's magical tools or beautiful embodiment rituals or doing something for business with intuitive strategy. I just love it all.
Yeah. Well, which is so interesting too, because you share that you worked in business and sort of as a very business minded person for a long time. And then to really, I don't know, I guess, wake up your intuition, but really embrace it in this way. It's lovely. But maybe share a little bit about your work, but also to, yeah, what shifted that dynamic from being more practical minded to allowing that intuition to grow.
Yeah, I would love to say it was this smooth, beautiful, elegant process, but that would be a lie too, right? So it was the shock and awe campaign that the universe, conspired to help me get into my true life purpose, which is why I'm so adamant about doing it for other people. My son was born. He's going to be 21 in February. And, you think, okay, a lot of women have that huge, shift when they become a mother. And I think that was true for me too, but I was so enamored with my career that I had fully expected to continue on and have the baby be kind of like my life pack. And that was not to be, right? That was absolutely not to be. He was born and he had a lot of developmental issues that were physical. And then we ran into learning and brain developmental issues. Mm-hmm. He was on the spectrum. So we wanted to do every single thing that we could to actually have him have a normal life versus just come up with strategies. So we pursued Western practices, of course, and had all the therapies in place, but we really went to the ancient Eastern methods and incorporated all of those. And long story short, he's great. He's fine today. Completely typical. He's great. He has no underlying or any residual anything about not being able to have that emotional quotient and be able to relate and sense of humor and athlete and all those things. So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And I didn't come out of that untouched, right? So as I was doing all this exploration on the Eastern methods, I was realizing that what an impact it had on daily life. What an impact it had on the way I came and entered into the world. What an impact it had with the way I ran my business, even though at the time it was very far in the closet. I mean, I was so far in that woo closet. I didn't know how I was going to get out. And then, of course, the universe conspired to have that happen too. And it did take a while, I will say, to come fully out and say yes to being visible and valued and respected as much for my business strategies experience as my intuitive knowing and healing ability. So it's been it's been a process.
Yeah. Well, I know my oldest son was born with some physical disabilities. And I know at least for me, first child, that was a huge, like I had done all the right things. I stopped dyeing my hair. I didn't take aspirin and I, stopped drinking. And then be like, wait, what? Like this baby isn't quote unquote perfect.
Right.
It was really knocked me off track. So I can imagine that I feel your story, I guess.
Thank you. And I actually, a long time ago told my story through a book. And the way I described it was my heart fell and just clattered down to my ankles and it rattled around there for a good 5 years until we had what I say to people is that we had the right people in place finally to then be able to really successfully affect change. Yeah. It took a handful of years to, it's kind of like doing this and then you kind of do a little bit of that and you kind of do a little bit of this and you're definitely making progress, but you don't have that exact right container. And so, my heart just rattled around my ankles. Swear to God. Yeah.
Boy, that is an image, right? To think of, just that metaphor of your heart not being where it needs to be, right?
Right. Yeah, and for moms, we know that our heart lives in, outside of us once we have our children and as they grow and they become more independent. But for people that have, or parents that have children that have issues, it definitely, the heart is not in the heart cavity. The heart is definitely around your ankle somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it took me a while to feel sort of settled and mothering and yeah, just being, like you said, having the right ingredients almost for this to go forward and feel settled. So how was that for you to bring? I love how you talk about your woo being in the closet because I feel like for me that's like that was always my sister's role was the woo woo person, the person who sort of brought in spirituality in new ways, and slowly me coming to terms with like I have that too, and that's okay too. But how was that for you to bring that out into your business world, not just your personal life?
Right. And so I lived a parallel life for a while. I
Mm.
lived that wildly holistic, you go back 20 years and holism was an appropriate term, right? If you said anything about intuition, you were definitely not welcomed, to pursue that conversation. Thankfully, that's changed dramatically, which is wonderful. But I was in my personal life very much in the intuitive realm. And in the business life, we did bring it in. And I say we, my husband and I had the business strategy firm. So we had some flexibility there. And I would bring it in. Our tagline was reviving the heart and soul in business. And
Mm.
yet a lot of our clients, Kim, just keep the woo. You know, big brain. We want all your business expertise. We want you to help us make the deals and all the things. I'm going to do leadership coaching and mentoring and whatnot. And the reality is, you do not leave the intuition behind. You definitely bring that forward. You just may be quiet about it.
Mm.
And so everybody, every client I went into, they would say, "Oh, we love it when you're here. We always feel better. It's so calm. We're connected. We have clarity." And in my head, silently, I'm thinking, I did the ritual for you before I got here. I cleansed the energy in the entire space, right? And I'm doing all these heart link connections with everybody. That's perfect. I'm glad you love the words that I've spoken about whatever, organizational structure we're talking about. So that ended up not fitting anymore, right? We all know
Mm.
those times where we've outgrown something and it chafes and you feel like there's a grinding there. And again, the universe conspires. And so I would love to say, I'm a business strategist. I would love to say that this was just this beautiful, just soft pivot, along a hinge. No. I was starting to tell my clients, you don't need me, you're fine. And as a consultant, you don't do that, right? That's not a good idea. So when that started coming out of my mouth more often than not, I said, okay, I need to restructure. I need to do something else. And it did take me a while. It really did. This is why I appreciate people's transformative journey and that it's a
Mm.
spiral and it's not a straight line, because I did a lot of different things to try to see. And it was like to obfuscate. I was definitely not willing to be visible. I wasn't
Mhm.
valuing the intuitive realm as much as my business expertise. I brought down my rates. I was trying to do the whole funnel campaign and here's a product over here, and for your listeners, they can't see that I'm holding my arm way far away from me,
Yeah,
saying,
right. Don't look too closely at me.
right, I'm not here, right? And we know that does not work, right? Authenticity and engagement and connection are so important. And I knew that. I've been in business long enough, and yet really had to go through a deep process a handful of years ago, asking myself every morning in meditation, how am I hiding?
Wow.
And have
Wow.
that be revealed.
Wow. I
Yeah,
just want to pause with that because that just resonates so much with me. Yeah.
absolutely. And actually it came to the point that what was I willing to do to hide? Like, how am I willing myself to hide? Because after you get those first layers of revelation where they're obvious, like you're not valuing yourself, you're throwing that product way out there apart from you, and those become fairly obvious, and you bring them closer together. Oh, but things like, your email campaign didn't work, or you showed up, but you really didn't show up, and you were going to tell that story, but then you really didn't tell the story, or you were going to say you were intuitive, but you didn't. I remember speaking, this was also a handful of years ago, in a group that I had, done a tremendous amount of business things with. And I was doing some sort of, top of the year strategy. Right. And so now I do a full on astrological forecast. So I'm way out. Right. But at the time, I had a handful of friends that came, and it was really super cute. They were sat right in the front and they were being really supportive. And I made myself say the word tarot.
Wow.
I mean, and I was shaking and I was like breathing heavily, and I was kind of gasping, and I made myself stand, kind of solid, like, put my feet further into the ground and really did a grounding minute, if you will, like a moment. And then I said it. I bet my voice shook. I guarantee my voice shook. I know I was shaking. I was trembling like a leaf.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, even just like, just the subtleness of what we're not saying that's a lot.
Right. And that's why I started asking the question, how am I willing to hide? And that's where those more subtle things come into place. And I ended up doing something where I know someone's written a book about it. I can't remember the author's name, but, saying yes. I just said yes. I just said yes. Someone said, "Oh, do a live with me." I hadn't been online at all. I didn't know what I was doing. Do a live with me and talk about, it was the astrological forecast. It was a handful of years ago. And I said yes. And I said yes and didn't even know to invite my own people. Like,
I've done that. Yeah. Right. Sure, I'll be on, but does anybody know me? No.
No one who knows me will know. Right. So then, of course, and literally I'm in the middle of the conversation and I'm thinking to myself, I should have told people that I was doing this, right? So I ended up sharing it. Like, I ended up actually saying, okay, I'm not willing to hide this. Let's come out and I will actually share this. But, everything happens by degrees. And as long as you're making forward progress and as long as you're opening up to yourself and being true to yourself, you're going in the right direction. The speed doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very, very powerful. Just allowing yourself to get there. Well, and two, I appreciate your acknowledgement of that it's not linear and that it can be messy and spiraling and not feel like maybe you're moving forward when you really are.
Right. Right. Well, that's the creative spiral of the feminine, right? We're in a new era now, for all time. And so things are not linear. Things are not going to be as logical. The uncertainty that we're all dealing with is something we're going to gain familiarity with. If not comfort, then certainly it's going to be familiar, and we'll find ways. And this is why I am so almost rabid now about intuition, and it must be front facing. It must be at the fore. And what we talk about is that intuition plus strategy is the formula that people are going to see for their growth and their success and their results and bottom lines and things like that. Intuition itself is not enough, and strategy itself is not enough. It's the combination of the two.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Like intuitively to be strategic and intuitively, right? Or something.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being true to you. That's what, like, intuition is the conversation that you're having with yourself. You can say it's the universe and guides, and of course it is both, but as above, so below. As below, so above. I mean, there is that whatever happens in the inner life is being reflected in the outer world.
Yeah.
So, and I say to my people who would love to be just intuitive, right? So I have them on the spectrum of like the range of, here you're wildly intuitive and we're helping bring you into the business world and success. And then you're wildly successful and we'll help you bring you back to you into the intuitive space. And I say to my intuitives, oh, it's really interesting what you're downloading and all the messages you're getting. But and I will do it. Hum diddy dum dum dum, on a mountaintop somewhere. That's mildly interesting. It's actuating it in the world. It's expressing it. It's having that creative embrace with others that is really going to create the life that you want to lead.
And so how, for those clients that maybe are not really intuitively aligned, that I think a lot of my audience is women who are looking to feel more authentic, find that and trust that intuition in a way that maybe they've put in the closet for a long time. Right. So how do you help your clients retune to that intuitive knowing that's there, but we've tuned out?
Right. I mean, and then I love how you said that. It's there. Every single person is intuitive. And I say that, and all the
And I
introverts,
love that face. They can't
right,
see you, but I
right,
love your look.
100%, right? Like so
Yeah.
because every single person is, and what's ended up happening through no one's fault is that we've just shut down that voice because of practicalities, right? And so it started with the adults in our lives, that they were dealing with practicalities, and whatever we were intuiting or what have you when we were younger just didn't fit. And so we started to negate that voice, and then it just became a habit. And from that habit, we now have to reverse that habit. So it's just like any quote unquote fitness routine, right? So I think just recognizing that it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a practice, I think, is the first thing. The second thing, this is why I've come up with the know, like, trust, turning it inside out and saying, how do you know yourself? How do you like yourself? How do you trust yourself? And those are actually the three pillars of intuition, really. And so, you ask yourself, well, how do I know myself? Right. So you can take quizzes and you can go see people to help gain that awareness. But that still doesn't relate to that inner voice and that trusting, right? That the liking piece is how you energetically feel the power in your life and how you allow it to flow so that you are fully responsible for you and you step into your inner authority without trying to throw things over the wall that I was talking about earlier, right?
Right.
But it's the trust, and the trust is the key, right? The trust is, how do you know that it's your intuition versus past experience just coming into your mind, or your mind or your imagination or something? And that's really where you need to get down into the core of you, and you need to, people don't love this, but you do need to have some meditative practice,
Right. Some quiet to be with yourself.
Absolutely. And so recognizing which ones, some of us actually do trust, but we don't necessarily understand how the energies work, or some of us do know a lot about ourselves, but we don't trust. And so we've come up with a quiz that you answer 12 questions, and it gives you this beautiful intuitive type avatar. And we do lots of things for you being able to lean into yourself more, because that's really what it's about. It's about you being more of you.
Yeah. Well, and the knowing, liking, and trusting yourself feels so, I don't know, like it's such a solid foundation to come from, right? If you're putting as we learn and trust our intuition, to feel comfortable in whatever else we're putting out into the world, whether it's our relationships or our business or whatever, like people are going to feel that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, especially now, it's a cacophony out there, and I'm talking to my clients. We're setting up 2022 strategy for everybody. And I'm talking about, there is going to be lots of uncertainty next year. This is going to continue. The good news is the universe is conspiring to help us become comfortable with the unfamiliar, and then therefore go inward and listen to our inner voice. But it doesn't feel good. The mind is protecting us. And so it's negating that, and it's retracting in some ways. So people are less apt to be making decisions, less apt to be making purchases, or they're making purchases to the loudest person, right? And so it's really about that connection of you being wholly and authentically you, reaching out in that authenticity to someone else who's wholly and being authentically them. And that's creating beautiful collaborations and relationships. But there's a trust factor involved on both sides. And the more you trust yourself, the more that's reflected in the world, and the more you can trust others and form those beautifully, win-win relationships without dropping into fear that, it could be fear of anything. Think about it. It's FOMO. It's competition. It's I'm not good enough. It's, our minds can really protect us too well.
Yes. I love the way you phrase that, but you are absolutely right. They can protect us too well and just, run based on the fears versus the knowing and the trusting and the liking. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the other thing is that people, intuition is such a vast area, right? So we carve it up to give people their pathway. So when you enter it through that intuitive type, you have a certain strength that you can leverage. And based on leveraging that strength, you then have the opportunity to be in a more inviting way, to open up to other of those areas that you'd want to develop. That's one of the things. The other thing is that there's a certain amount of intuitive muscle that you have at this point in time, right? So wherever you are, we meet you where you are, and we say, okay, this is your pathway based on your profile of intuitive type. This is your pathway to then that will create an easier, clearer way for you to develop your intuition, because it's no two intuitions are alike.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true, right? We are just coming at it from ourselves, and yeah, that it may be a different path for each person.
Absolutely.
Wow. So if there were listeners who are like, oh my gosh, I need to know more about Kim and her work and what she offers, how do people find you? Are there things out there that are out there in the world that they can connect with you?
We are so out there in the world because I had not, I wanted to be visible, right?
Yeah.
So kimwoods.com is the website, and it will direct you to all the things. But if you have a certain, love for Insta, it's Kim Woods channel. A Facebook, also Kim Woods channel. We have a free group that's the Power Up Your Intuition group in Facebook that we're in there all the time. And we're talking about being purposeful and strategic as well as intuitive, right? And being powerful and prosperous. That's what we do in that group. We have the quiz that's obviously free, and it's knowyourlifequiz.com. And 12 questions later, you'll get your intuitive type. And we you in this beautiful, you can get meditations, you can get rituals, you can read articles, we just invite you to explore yourself a little bit more fully. And then there is a forecast that I do for at the top of the year, and it's get your 2022 forecast. And it's a beautiful 30-page guide. I'm not sorry, I'm not viewing, I'm listening here. And we talk all about what's happening in the stars, because that's energy that you can use. You can leverage that energy. And when gee, this month is more favorable versus that month, that's really helpful, because in these uncertain times, having a little bit of foresight is really great for navigation, especially if you're going to do a launch or you're thinking about, hiring or whatever you're doing for your business.
Yeah. Just the energies that you want to be aligned with whatever it is you're putting out there universally.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Honestly, it's good for all seasons, and we do things around the equinox. We do things around the solstice. We do ritual on Insta, if for those types of things. Yeah, when I say we are out there, we are out there.
That's awesome. That is awesome. You have opened the doors and taken down the curtains, and it is all there.
100%. Awesome. I mean, honestly, just to let people know, writing for Inc., writing for Forbes, writing for Entrepreneur, on a TV show monthly, and it's all about intuitive strategy, intuitive business. So the world is ready.
That's so awesome. Well, I just so appreciate I know you're busy with all the things, but I appreciate your taking the time to be with us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this, and I love helping other people come into themselves.
Love it.
Oh my goodness. I loved that conversation with Kim Woods. I think that in this next version of my business and my growth, I want to be more like her. I want to welcome more of the woo into my work, but also into my life in terms of really knowing, liking, and trusting myself in an even greater way, a deeper depth, a wider pool. Her comment about how are you sort of hiding yourself in more subtle ways, like what are you throwing over the fence to not be seen, or what are you putting out there in the world in a way that isn't fully embracing it, that really resonated with me. And I know I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the year on the podcast in terms of how I want to shift things. And it is just bringing in more of me into the world and into my work and into what I share here on the podcast and through the coaching business. So this was an inspiration for me. I'm excited to share that I got to share this conversation with all of you. And if you want to know more about Kim and the resources we talked about for her and her business, you can find them at awakenyourwisewoman.com or search the podcast awakenyourwisewoman.com, and you will find all of that in the show notes. Well, I hope you all will tune into your intuition, will tap into that internal knowing, grow the liking and trusting of yourself through this week. If you'd like updates on all the new episodes of the podcast, free offers with me, or other ways to work with me, you can sign up for my newsletter. Go to elizabethcushcoaching.com, and there's a sign up form at the bottom of the page. Have a great week. I look forward to connecting with you next time. Thanks for listening to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Music by Andy Cush, sound editing by Laura Disler, and show notes by Kathy Cush. If you'd like more information about me, Biz Cush, and the resources shared today, go to awakenyourwisewoman.com.